Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream / recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, April 26th. We're starting early today because I was sitting here doing scheduling, and yesterday I got sick. So now it feels more than likely like I forgot to eat before doing a lot of work type scenario, and that's why I got ill. But you never really know, and frankly I just kind of feel weak in the bones, to turn a phrase, and my fear was if I sat here for several hours, because I woke up bright and early, I suppose at around 9 in the morning. My fear was that if I exhaust myself scheduling videos, I wouldn't be able to do the live stream, which is much more important, and I should just probably take it easy. So that's where we are with that, why we're starting early. That being said, that also proves that I really haven't done anything. Otherwise, I scheduled 4 or 5 videos, and that's about it. Today we're on the Americans account. We need to win 3 games with a Paladin and a Warrior and deal 65 damage, which are incredibly easy things to do. And I think we have a bunch of garbage games and not really a lot of news. Maybe a rant. I don't even know what this is from, if this was a watch and learn or what. But oh no, the Hearthstone tournament is happening, and so this is the first pack that you can get from that. This is the Choose Your Champion pack that allegedly you'll get if you watch 4 hours of the tournament on Twitch. You can win a second pack at least. But I think also the choosing champion idea is that if I somehow magically picked the winning guy, I would win more packs, instead of just picking somebody who would be eliminated in the first round, which there's a decent chance for that. Let's go ahead and dust that and try and get all these cards going. So yeah, the danger here is going to be just along the lines of running slow, getting quiet, and not really making much content. So I'm gonna try to avoid doing that so much by just having a shorter experience. It is Friday, so odds are there aren't going to be an incredibly large amount of things that would come out as far as video game news, or you know, games that just came out on Steam. But there very possibly will be a few that are just going to be left. So I'm still trying to get my head around what numbers mean in the video game industry. There's actually quite a few stories that are here as far as today, as far as stories. The first one is TechRaptor, and I'm just going to read this story because some of the screenshots might not be family friendly. I just saw a YouTuber's video of a woman, I think her name's Leanna K, who, like, sometimes I agree with what she says, sometimes I don't, but apparently she gets demonetized whenever she she plays a character called Beelzebub, and it shows a not obscene amount of cleavage. She has large breasts, but if you have large breasts and you're wearing a push-up bra, that's pretty much the same as what you would occasionally see on the street or on TV in your average show. I guess that's probably evidence that I should care about maybe censoring my channel a little bit more, but heck, my channel's not monetized in the first place, so I'm not even going to spend any energy or effort on something until I have 1,000 subscribers and they let me in the YouTube Partner Program, which are 2 questions. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, if after the long struggle of getting 1,000 subscribers, which really shouldn't have been a long struggle, but clearly gaming channels are not promoted at all. I wouldn't be surprised though if after that long struggle, after already being in the YouTube Partner Program, they still say, no, we're not gonna let you in. We have enough. We have enough video game channels. And along that same theme, TechRaptor's article here is Nutaku, the adult/lewd sex game site, has now 25 million users, which is quite a lot considering how they, I do believe, are self-publishing everything also, so it's not really a case that Nutaku is gathering from many different developers really good games and then publishing them on one store. It's more that they are hiring developers to make games for their store, and I think pretty much exclusively for their stores. But 25 million users seems like a big number. The other big announcement is the Android store is now in beta. And yeah, there's a certain appeal. The question, of course, of playing an adult game on your cell phone is that you are just certainly asking for trouble. Like, it is eventually going to be you're playing a game on your phone and somebody leans over and sees that you're playing something inappropriate on your phone. But the number there, the 25 million user number, is an interesting number because we see a lot of times somewhere between 300,000 and 3 million unit sales for a specific game. Yeah, like 300,000 for an indie game is a good seller. 3 million or up to 3 million for a AAA game is a good number, it seems. So there's a definite question there. If 25 million user base and most games can only get at most, or hope at most to get 10% of a 25 million user base for their specific game, that would be right at 2.5 million sales. If 10% of the 25 million Nutaku users bought one specific game on their site, which that seems very in line with what I'm learning to understand, or endeavoring to understand about the numbers, which is not something I've ever really paid attention to before, which really goes to show, I think, too, if somebody who's been playing video games for their entire life has no idea what a good number of sales is, anytime a video game has said it's a game of the year, or it's sold over 1 million copies, that really has just been information that's been in one ear and out the other. Like 1 million sounds like a big number, but for a AAA game it really isn't. Maybe it was in the old days, but doesn't seem like it is now. So in a weird way, the numbers of just about anything are really just hype and don't mean anything to most people. Moving on though, we have a game on Steam here called Loreville 7. It's a Candy Crush clone. I'm a little surprised that these still are getting put on Steam. It's not widescreen. It's $5.99 or $6.99. It looks like, yeah. I don't really get that idea, but I guess it'll just keep happening for a while. Excuse me as I yawn. This is probably going to be one of those streams too where we get to a point where I realize I started too early and didn't wake up enough. It just occurred to me, by the way, since I'm lesser likely to actually what am I trying to say? Yeah, since I'm lesser likely to actually have a way to make more Hearthstone episodes, and since I'm starting to realize that I'm by the end of 2019 going to be out of as many episodes as I would like to have,
I'll never tell.
it makes a decent amount of sense to, at the end of this year, change Hearthstone scheduling from every day back to Monday through Friday, and build forward that way. Theoretically, if I stick to a strict 3 episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that's 9 episodes for 7 days. That would give me 2 episodes for every week. That's probably as good as it's ever gonna get. I have no idea why people have us play that twin spell and play this card to play secrets when Secret Keeper does not work with it. But I guess it wins pretty often, so nothing to be super upset about. Yeah. Let's see. Game of Sutra has an article here. Snapchat is launching an SDK to let devs use Bitmoji avatars in their own games. Apparently these are what Bitmojis look like. I've seen these kind of avatars. I think they look pretty bad. Particularly, you have a character here with a huge head. Like, just a huge head. Tiny little hands. Tiny hands even in comparison to the controller, so it's not like a perspective thing. It's just the characters have tiny hands. You have a tiny feet, short legs. Also, this is pretty obviously a female character, but it is as flat as a ruler, body type, and no real cleavage or anything like that too. And then giant headphones, giant controllers, kind of a giant chair. Seems very much out of scale as far as this picture is. So I don't know why that would be something that somebody would want to play. Like, as it were, that does not look like a good-looking avatar for most cases. And even the Microsoft Xbox avatars aren't particularly great. Let's just be honest. They looked kind of cool, as it feels like the system should just have avatars, but instead of a flat image as a profile image. I guess avatars in a lot of ways are trying to get away from what you have in forums, where half of the forums, depending on what forum you are, just have like silly, stupid profile pictures or anime girls, depending on the forum, as profile pictures. So that I could see the idea of avatars trying to replace that and limit it down to, well, you can only do these certain things.
Reporting for duty.
But even the Xbox, when they were pushing avatars very hard, their original avatars, which have now been updated and replaced, never really had any games where it did much with them other than use them as a 3D profile pictures. The live 2D that is now being used a lot in visual novels could potentially take a lot of the 2D image profile pictures and put a little bit of movement on them and a little bit of life on those types of on flat profile pictures. But I'm pretty sure if you can even have a custom avatar on like the Google Play Store, you only pick from like 12 pre-made things, or maybe there's an upload your own image option that nobody uses. And the same would be true for like Netflix, where like the Netflix gives you a selection of a small number of pre-rendered avatars. It's just fine because it's just an account visual reminder. Doesn't really do anything else.
Got something to hide?
Reporting for duty.
I don't think PlayStation ever went too heavy with avatars. I know the Mii's on the Switch, well, there never were Mii's on the Switch, but Mii's were killed, and so there's really no avatars like for Nintendo. So yeah, avatars in general have just never been a big deal, and I don't see, maybe this is because I'm just an old fuddy-duddy, I don't see the point of that. Maybe though, I could see maybe a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old that has grown up using Snapchat to send images that supposedly auto-delete to their friends and send messages that supposedly auto-delete to their friends. Maybe there's a generation there that just trusts Snapchat, even though they probably shouldn't, and thus they're trying to hold on to that fan base.
The battle.
That would make a little bit sense, but then I would like to see it be just better looking avatars. Moving on, that's kind of a rant for no reason. We have a game on Steam called Imperator Rome, which Imperator Rome. This feels like a made-up word, Imperator.
Blood.
It's
and
mixed and it's a strategy game, or a grand strategy game. It's $39.99. Let's see if we can see some negative reviews. Let's see. The game suffers from a number of problems, beginning with the same lack of character that plagued the Paradox first Rome games. They somehow take one of my favorite periods of time and make it unenjoyable to me, and did it with Sengoku as well. Neat trick, I guess. So Paradox, I guess, is the question here.
Let me think.
Paradox Development Studio, makers of Stellaris and Crusader Kings and Europa Universalis. So that's like a big name developer and self-publisher, and they just snuck out this game, and I haven't heard anybody mention this at all, and it's mixed reviews. I think for me in particular, though, I'm in a better position because I kind of already know that I don't want to play a lot of these grand strategy games. I probably only have enough energy in me to play a few, maybe 5 grand strategies over the course of maybe 2 decades, if that much. Like, it's not even a style of gameplay that I want to get into. Unlike, say, JRPGs or fighting games, which I actually do want to get into and cover, grand strategy games seem to be such a niche audience in the first place that there's enough people that know to do the research, and it seems likely that if you play a grand strategy game, you are the type of person who would do a lot of research in the first place. So I wouldn't be surprised if yeah, there's really no reason to do consumer advice for a grand strategy game. I also heavily suspect that people who play grand strategy games probably have a favorite series or a favorite game that they stick very close to. Moving on, we have this article from Gamasutra. It says Epic would back away from exclusives if Steam changes to rev share, says the CEO Tim Sweeney of Epic Games Store. This is BS, certainly. Almost there would be even if there was a contract along that lines, and some people have labeled this that he would price if Gearbox, not Gearbox, I'm confusing the issue here. Some people were phrasing this. He said if Valve would price match the games that are on the Epic Store, so effectively giving Epic a unfair advantage, because then Epic would still be getting, for Unreal games at least, their cut, and then Valve would be taking home less than what Epic as a store and as a company would be taking home. For simplicity's sake, I could look up the real numbers, but let's say it's Valve takes a 30% cut, and on top of that 30% cut from the sale of a game, if it's an Unreal game, Epic then takes its, let's say, 5% cut. what they're saying here is if Valve would price match the games in the Epic Store, effectively taking a what would be almost like 5% of their 30% cut out, while all Unreal games would still be paying the exact same 5% cut to Unreal. This is an unfair advantage. It basically means every 5% more money would still be going to the Epic as a company if it's sold from the Epic Store, even though it's the same price both in the Epic Store and the Valve Store. Which this is kind of just like a BS thing. It's the equivalent of Walmart saying, well, we would price match Amazon.com if Amazon.com would sell all of our Walmart in-store brand, which I believe is Great Value brand, products for 5% more on the Amazon.com's website. Or if Amazon.com would sell it for the same price as it's sold at Walmart, but that still means that Walmart would be making more money. Of course, in that example I just said, I used Walmart and Amazon.com as the references. This is probably a much closer scenario to right now if Dollar General, which let's say the Epic Store is Dollar General, demanded that, said they would price match, or they would stop having exclusives at Dollar General, which, yeah, the exclusives at Dollar General probably not anything anybody cares about. If Amazon.com would price match them. So imagine Amazon.com selling a bunch of Dollar General fire sale garbage products, which Amazon.com already kind of does that, but they try to do a little bit of quality control.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
This is probably in part showing the hand of Tim Sweeney, and I think in part Gearbox and many other publishers and video game developers in general, that I wouldn't be surprised if there has been some collusion, which or maybe not use that term, but some coordination and conspiracy in the background, where a lot of video game publishers and developers have gotten together with Tim Sweeney and said, hey, can you help us force Valve to lower their prices? Because inherently, if Valve called them on this and agreed to this and lowered their cut, then I wouldn't be surprised if in less than 3 years you see the Epic Store barely has any games on it at all, and still that's probably going to be the case regardless, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is just an attempt to force a business partner to do something that they obviously don't want to do.
Got something to hide?
And there may not really be anything too dishonest about this attempt. In the end, the Epic Store does not become a better store if it forces Valve to take less of a cut and take less money. The Epic Store is still 100% planning on doing very little work and being a very poor store, in my opinion. And meanwhile, Fortnite, despite the success of Fortnite, it doesn't feel like Epic is really doing too much. And if I was Valve, I'd probably either say nothing, which is probably the right move, or tweet back, we'll lower the cut if you give us the Unreal Engine, because that's really where this should go. Is there should be probably a splitting of Epic between the company that works on, improves, and makes the successful and useful Unreal Engine, and a company that makes video games like Fortnite, and the two should be separate. And frankly, Valve would do very well to have the Unreal Engine instead of Source. Which, this is probably where that comes from. If I did more research, I wouldn't be surprised if Valve and Tim Sweeney have had a hostile relationship for quite a long amount of time, because Epic has been making Unreal for a decent amount of time, and Valve has been making a competitor to Unreal. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the Source engine itself was originated as a competitor to Unreal. It's also, I think, inherently important to point out that it's a BS argument, because the Epic Store really is never going to be in a position to say that we're going to stop exclusives. That's always going to be on the publisher's choice. And even if it was a completely fair playing field, and there was for instance on Borderlands 3, even if 2K was going to make the exact same amount of money by not being exclusive as they would from being exclusive, there's no way to really stop 2K from saying, actually, we just want to make our game exclusive to your store. I mean, that really is a publisher's decision. The reason why publishers are making that decision is because right now Epic is promising and paying a lot of money, it seems like, to get these exclusives. And I suspect the reason why they're saying they would be willing to drop exclusives is because they've probably already burned all their money. They were hoping, I heavily suspect, to come out smelling really, really good with the first few exclusives. And ever since the Epic Store launched as an actual storefront instead of just a launcher,
What shall we hunt?
it's been this spiraling poop storm, to say the least, and they have never been able to get really any good will amongst the player base. And so I wouldn't be surprised if soon we'll hear stories that the Epic Store is going to slow down or shut down completely. And I wouldn't be surprised if Borderlands 3 is the first kind of big AAA game, and the last. I know that there's been a couple other games, like Metro, that you could call AAA, but that I wouldn't call them big AAA. In fact, I'd call Metro a AA game, frankly.
one neck of the woods.
Let's move on. Next we have a game on Steam here called Dinosaur Bone Digging, which it seems to just be a find the hidden object kids game. I think these single-minded style of games are usually just too simplistic. It's $1.79 discounted. If you have an extremely young kid that you want to be a PC gamer, maybe it would make sense to get this, but really you probably would want this on a mobile format so you can play it on your cell phone when you're out and about. And quite frankly, since there isn't enough support of
I'll never tell.
since there's not really enough support of kids games on Steam and PC, it's really hard to justify having kids play on PC. It's a lot easier it's a lot easier idea to buy a Switch and then as a parent sometimes play some of those Nintendo games and then let the Switch be used by the kid for the rest of the time than it is to try and bring them into PC gaming. Frankly, for young kids, the only thing that might justify having them play on the PC is if they're playing just ROMs of very old games. That brings in a lot of the kid console games from previous generations into the mix. Moving on, we have a TechRaptor article, every available Snapchat game reviewed. Let's see. There's one called Ready Set Play, Bitmoji Party Review. So here's these avatars, and that's what I was talking about. It's just like, they look horrible. Why in the world? It looks like all of these games are pretty awful looking. It seems like there's like 5 as of the writing of this article too, so not a large selection by any means. Just go ahead and play this. Do this. Do this.
Time's up.
6, 3, 1,
Join your dog.
2,
For justice.
3. I'm 1 short. But I'm gonna lose, unfortunately. Next we have a game on Steam called Galactic Campaign. It looks like a space game with a little bit of polish on it. You know what gets me about this? This is tagged casual, and I think it might be a little bit more casual than your standard space game. It doesn't seem like you're flying around in a spaceship. It doesn't seem like you're doing anything like that. Instead, it says it's a political campaign where everything is allowed. It's $11.99. I'm willing to put this one on the follow list and see if people like it. Because really that's more of a political game than it is a space game. It's just a political game that kind of wisely set itself in a space world so that you don't run into any potential accusations of being a troll game. I'm gonna switch over to Custom Paladin over here and see if Custom Paladin plays any better than the Hearthstone deck tracker or HS Replay decks, because I was winning quite a bit with Paladin before, and now
Luther versus
now I'm not winning, and I don't think I'm playing that badly.
Force fights back.
I will fight with honor.
TechCraft has an article here. Hell is Utter Demons review. Hell hath too much fury. This looks like it's a bullet hell shooter game, if I was to guess. Or some kind of shooter game. I'm not sure I particularly like the monotone color base of all of this. They give it a 6.5 good. A fun but frustrating bullet hell shooter with some of the best pixel graphics and chiptune sounds out there. Okay. So, pros are challenging but mostly fair. Arcade mode adds lots of playtime, amazing game feel. Cons are steep difficulty curve, which that immediately causes me not to want to play it. Cheap post-final boss scene and some annoying level design. So that's not anything interesting.
Put this apple on your head.
Gematsu has an article here. The Swords of Ditto are coming to Switch alongside a free Mormo's Curse update on May 2nd. New locations, weapons, toys, enemies, and bosses, and no more permadeath. Now, the Swords of Ditto is the game that was not well received because it looked like the other Ditto games that were Zelda ish. Or am I thinking of some other game series totally? I'm not even sure. There was a series most definitely that was Zelda-ish and mostly, for the most part, played like a Zelda game. But Swords of Ditto definitely wasn't it.
For justice.
They've been trying to patch and change things after the initial poor reception there. But I'm not sure if the DLC and all will fix it. I guess now that it's coming to the Switch, maybe you can find a new audience and people will give it a second chance, although the odds of that are kind of low. I would heavily not expect somebody to be given a second chance. Right.
For justice.
Let's see. Gematsu has an article here. American Fugitive launches May 21st for the PS4, PC, May 23rd for the Switch, and May 24th for Xbox One. Seems like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter game. Looks like a mobile game more than anything else. Like a GTA style of game in the old school appreciation of GTA.
Reporting for duty.
Yeah, it seems very much like American Fugitive is just GTA. And there is something to be said about GTA 1 and GTA 2 being more of a top-down game, so it's not so much in your face and trying to tell anything that's like a story, where GTA 3, I believe, is the point where it starts to be 3D and they start to make it more of a character-based event with a lot of open sandbox shooter things. There's more missions, I think, in later GTAs than the original games, where the original games are more just open-ended. Let's see, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Forgotten in Hell. which seems like a horror top-down twin-stick shooter game with some dark screenshot syndrome thrown on top of it, which is funny because this thumbnail looks kind of good. Like, if I just saw this thumbnail and that was it, I'd be like, okay, well, that sounds like that might be something of interest. But then looking at this video and the gameplay, it's just like nothing. It's $1.79 discounted. Maybe, unfortunately, there is a way to profit from making these low effort games. Maybe there is just a trick there where you either license a single thumbnail and get so many people in from the thumbnail. That certainly would explain why thumbnails are so heavily emphasized on YouTube in particular, and probably why my channel sucks, because it has no thumbnails. Yeah, maybe the packaging does a lot more of the selling than I thought it would.
Put this apple on your head.
Certainly would explain why all the packaging on every product ever looks so highly polished.
Shields up.
Level by Level Gaming's on the chat. He says hello from your friend at LBL. Hey, how's it going? Let's see, play this one and take that one and do that. TechRaptor has an article here. Immortal Legacy, the Jade Cypher review. Resident Uncharted. There is a game out that just came out, Days Gone I believe is the name of it, where it is like an open world Uncharted with a lot of Sons of Anarchy feel to it, and from what I'm hearing, people are mostly finding it to be a mediocre game. Nothing super wrong with it per se. It's just that there's kind of not a lot of reason that you would want to spend the 60 plus hours it seems to take to play Days Gone, because there's not much of a story there. At least that's what I'm hearing from mainstream video game critics. And mainstream video game critics often and more often seem to be not in line with what gamers actually want. You look at the Metacritic of Mortal Kombat to see that.
Show me.
Which there's a point there that I guess I want to try to avoid getting into a rant with, but some people are saying that Mortal Kombat, I think this is 11, is the latest one, is getting review bombed. There's literally, I don't think, a single complaint that would justify calling it review bombing. And see, review bombing has just become the new word, the new Nazi word for people to use to just try and shut down conversations and, I guess, unperson reviewers. Like, if you're complaining about the ending in Mortal Kombat feeling extremely hammy for Jax, that's actual gameplay content that you're complaining about. That's not a review bomb. I watched a YouTube video that showed the ending for every single character. I felt the Jax ending was odd and out of place. I felt all the endings for all the characters were odd and out of place, because in my mind at least, the Mortal Kombat characters are just big nothing burgers, and trying to give them anything more than a few seconds of quippy retort before and after a fight and trying to give them personality is ridiculous. It was ridiculous even a few games prior to say that Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage got together and made the combat, made Casey Cage and the combat kids as an idea in general. I think probably was a dumb idea. Trying to make a new generation of characters does not make sense in a fighting game. It makes a lot more sense that in fighting games the characters just never age and they're constantly always showing up and fighting. So yeah, that's ridiculous. If you're complaining about the microtransactions in Mortal Kombat, or perhaps more accurately, how the game in Mortal Kombat feels like it's designed to have microtransactions added at some point in the future, I think that's a gameplay feel thing and definitely not review bombing. If you're complaining about the fact that you don't like their decisions on how they did costume designs on the female characters, basically covering up all their skins in a very benevolent sexist way, benevolent sexism being the sexism most people forget exists, and the sexism that is just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, throughout the world. That's a visual aspect in the game. When Steam said they were going to counter review bombing, they kind of were talking about DRM and things you wouldn't see or feel, or at least they were making the argument, the way I was taking it and not interpreting their words, that it would be things that either a developer or publisher said or did outside the game, or DRM elements that are underlying in the game that you don't really feel, or an average player doesn't really feel. I think an average player will most definitely feel the microtransaction-y feel of Mortal Kombat. I think an average player, if they make it to the ending of Jack's combat tower and see his ending, where he, in a kind of curt, brief way, eliminates slavery from ever happening in the timeline. In comparison, I'm Sonya Blade in her win scenario. She turns like all of her friends into gods at the end and makes the God Squad, is what it's called. So all the endings are ridiculous. Those are all just things that
I will fight with honor.
that all felt silly, and I don't know if there really needed to be any story there. The bigger story is most definitely the fact that there is definitely a divide between how video game journalists are experiencing Mortal Kombat, which means they probably got the game for free, they probably got the game early, and they probably only played the single player, and how people who actually paid for the game, real gamers, are experiencing Mortal Kombat, which means at most they pre-ordered and they're playing it day one, and they're definitely having a different feeling experience there. I would also say there seems to have been lost in this any comment really of how well the fighting game actually plays and fights. So I would assume, since nobody is saying, well, the controls and the combo system and the input lag are either really good or really bad, I would assume that the game Mortal Kombat actually plays, when you're playing online or competitive local player, perfectly fine, but not specifically good nor bad. That's what I have to assume is the way it is, because the conversation has been just shifted so much away from what should be being said for a Mortal Kombat game. Like a new Mortal Kombat game, just in theory, if you were to make one, the conversation should be, it's got a lot of new characters that people are loving. It's got a great fighting combo system that people who are in the fighting combo systems are loving. It's everything that somebody who attends Evo would want. It'll be the #1 fighting game to replace, well, actually Smash now apparently is the #1 fighting game, at least by sales. Yeah, that's pretty much what you would want, is you'd want them to be talking about your game as its gameplay elements, how it felt and how people were liking it.
Follow the rule.
So if I hit this one, and I hit this one. Level by Level Gaming said, what main streamers do you watch on YouTube? Mainstream, well, when I say mainstream, I mean mainstream video gamers. So I think you're probably asking what main video game streamers. When I say mainstream, I mean journalists, people like Giant Bomb. Mostly I've tried to limit myself down to only watching Tech Raptor, Game Informer, Gamma Sutra, and GameIndustry.biz. No, I don't follow Game Informer. I don't know why I said that. GameIndustry.biz and Gamatsu. So the same people that I talk about articles, that's who I mostly try to listen to. Now I do still stupidly listen to the Jimquisition, which is, well, we're done today, so I'm going to move over to the European account, and I'm not going to break up the episode, I think, today at all. So that's kind of the mainstream news people. As far as video game streamers on YouTube, there's a couple of not Hearthstone players. I don't watch many of them at all. Although I follow Kriperian and Disguised Toast, I really don't watch any of their content on YouTube. Same way I follow PewDiePie, but I really don't watch a lot of his content either. There's a couple of Minecraft streamers that I follow, but I'm about, I think, time to wrap up watching a lot of the Minecraft streamers too. One's named is iJevin, one's name is Chosen Architect, Captain Sparkles, and his friend Zine. As far as Minecraft, there's several others that Mumbo Jumbo is another Minecraft streamer. There's a lot of them, but for the most part I skip a lot of their content. In all honesty, there's not a lot of YouTube streamers or Twitch streamers that I watch to play games. Just because that's what I'm doing and making content, and in the same way actors don't really watch a lot of movies, you run into that same scenario. Like, sorry as I chew ice over here. I follow Game Grumps, and I think his name is The Completionist, but a lot of times I'm not watching much of their content. So in a weird way, when I'm going to YouTube, I'm actually going to see something different. And on the few occasions where I have actually gone to Twitch to watch streaming, I try to watch. I usually just go to Twitch once a month or so, once every couple months, to see what the #1 streaming thing is. just to see what games are popular, and so I just look at the front page and then leave. Let's make a combo deck here. Let's see, this. So yeah, sometimes I've gone to Twitch and just watch people play actual pinball on actual pinball consoles, cabinets, pinball tables. Right, I'm just gonna make a combo deck and then let it fill automatically with that. Yep. Let's see, Level by Level Gaming said, haha, nothing burgers. Quote of the year, I'm writing that down and plagiarizing you. Well, nothing burger is not something I made up, certainly. It's a pretty well known internet slang. Let's see, combo. So you're free to use it. Right. Alright, that should set us nicely. Now, almost certainly, I will run into a scenario here where, for the European account, there will be a new daily quest that comes out after I'm done streaming. But I guess that's pretty much it.
Watch your back.
Level by Level said, yep, I see. So as I was talking there, it takes me a little bit of time to go around to actually respond. So to get back to this game, Immortal Legacy: The Jade Cipher on PlayStation VR, they gave it a 7.0, very good. Scroll back up here and just see what this was. It's like a horror game, it looks like, or oh, it was originally known as Kill X, and it was involved in Sony's China Hero project. So this is a Chinese game that Sony funded development of. I didn't realize the Chinese Hero project, they only seemed to announce that a couple of months ago. I didn't realize they were going to have something to show with so quickly. I thought that would take years. But yeah, Immortal Legacy: The Jade Cipher's clunky controls and iffy late game bosses hold back what is fun. It's weird. If weird, it hold back what is a fun, if weird VR first-person shooter. Pro fun gameplay, great bosses during the first half, quite a few scary moments, and a fantastic soundtrack. Cons are an iffy plot, clunky controls. Second half bosses are pretty terrible, and bad voice acting. So it does seem weird that Sony, well, it's weird in a lot of ways that Sony would support in any way a Chinese company. Like, I'm not up to date with Chinese-Japanese business relations, but I wouldn't expect them to be ever particularly good. So the idea that they would have funded this in the first place is weird, and then the idea that they funded it and it didn't return a decent level of quality is also rather strange. Right. I don't know if this is gonna work. Deal 2 damage. Nice. Let's see. Level by level game. Said I'm just old and don't know my lingo, man. Nothing burger seemed clever to me. Yeah, it's a good phrase for a unimpressive item or thing. Let's see, battle cry 2 damage, then combo 2 damage here. And then next spell I cost returns this to my hand at the end of the turn. Let's see. GameIndustry.biz has an article here. Hatch Entertainment wipes nearly £2 million, or no, this is €2 million off Rovio's Q1 profit. Rovio still posts solid results as the newly launched Angry Birds Dream Blast becomes its second biggest title. So Hatch Entertainment is apparently a mobile game streaming platform that Rovio owns, and they're trying to sell because it's just sucking money out of them. I guess this is a little too inside baseball of a story for me, though, frankly. The truth of it is, I feel like Angry Birds is probably pretty close to Rovio, and Angry Birds are probably pretty close to being bankrupt because they tried to grow so big so fast with Angry Birds merchandising and Angry Birds movies. I think the movies in particular probably got them a lot of money in the short run, but made it fairly obvious that there wasn't going to be a lot of extra content. Let's see. This and let's see, combo cards should trigger twice when I do this, right? Your minions, battle cries, and combos trigger twice. Oh, so only minion combos would trigger twice, not spell combos. Because then I would have like 2 head cracks in my list. Next we have an article from TechRaptor. Persona 5S announced as Persona 5 Scramble at the Persona Super Concert 2019. This Scramble is, I think, a action-based RPG where, action RPG title, where the previous Persona games have been more of a turn-based RPG. Thus the phrase Scramble there. Let's not show that trailer because that's from Atlas, and Atlas hates streamers. To make a long story short.
This guy's toast.
So yeah, the idea of a sped up Persona game seems interesting. I would say this looks a lot like a Warriors game. You're playing in this trailer as Joker, and you're beating up like hundreds of demon looking creatures. There is some weirdness, I guess, with the Persona series going action though, because the idea was that you were creating personas or unlocking personas from yourself, your mind or your body to fight for you. So getting into the fight directly is a little weird, but it speeds up the game and makes it a lot more potentially sellable in my mind to a Western audience, where turn-based RPGs are slower, certainly, and with slowness there is a certain level of loss of interest.
this out.
Let me go home.
Kill all this. Yeah, the trailer's not showing a lot though. Unfortunately, even though the Persona series has the potential to be on PC, and a lot of the games are on, well, I think some of the games are on PC. Maybe none of the games are on PC, come to think of it. Even if they were, though, Atlas of Japan is second only to Nintendo of Japan for content ID and ridiculous limitations on streaming. In fact, I think Nintendo of Japan may have actually loosened some of their streaming requirements to the point where Atlas of Japan might be the worst game developer to try and show any of their game footage. Let's play this. Just keep playing that every turn. So, yeah, I'd love to think about playing Persona 1, 2, and 3, because then that would be a long list of very different JRPGs that would feel different and look different than your standard Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy looking game, or something like Neptunia that looks very anime. Persona does look anime, it just looks like its own very specific anime style. Let's see. This.
I usually work alone.
And this. Then in the turn. Let's see. Level by Levels Gaming says, "Hey man, only had a few minutes to watch. See you next time." Okay, bye. Thanks for watching. A view, even short, is better than no views, which is, frankly, even the live streams of Hearthstone, particularly on Friday, have gotten down to like 1 view, two views at most. Like, my channel is probably a channel where it would be questionable if I just took all my videos, like downloaded them, deleted them off YouTube somehow so YouTube would not know they ever existed, and then uploaded them again. I wouldn't be surprised if I got more subscribers that way than anything else. Just a fresh start. Because I feel like YouTube has put me in some kind of category of just do not recommend this to anybody.
Here we go.
That I've been basically shadow banned from YouTube. But I think a lot of YouTube creators feel that way, and it's probably true for a lot of YouTube creators. So probably wouldn't help or work if I did try to make a second channel and just upload all my old videos again. And yeah, it'd be too much work to even try.
This would be a good time for a master.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. Layers of Fear launches May 28th. I covered Layers of Fear. You can find the playlist for it on my channel. I didn't like it. It felt like it was a very nicely polished asset flip game, and that's pretty much what it was a highly polished asset flip game that did have a bit of a story, but the story was fairly obvious, and it really was just a linear experience of you're going to go down these hallways and see some horrific things, and maybe at the end you'll find one puzzle. Layers of Fear was really short. I would say that there was slightly more replayability in the DLC for Layers of Fear 1, and it was slightly better in the DLC, but I don't feel like Layers of Fear as a concept even really can succeed. I just don't think it's got the right ideas going for it.
Tell no tales.
Here we go.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Steamcraft, which looks like a clone of several other games where you build your own vehicles and then fight them. This one is already rated mixed, and that's enough to make me dismiss this game. We've seen several other instances of this, and this one is $9.74 and 25% off. Let's see. This game is like a lesser version of Warcraft,
So
and
many options.
cross out. There's less weapons, less customization, etc., etc. So yeah, if there are better games already on Steam, and then why in the world would somebody want to buy your new version that's lesser? Next, we have an interesting story here from GameIndustry.biz. Codemaster moves its F1 team into the new Birmingham studio. Studio head Ian Flatt says the new premises allowed the developer to recruit even further to expand the franchise. Let's see. It seems like they probably didn't move too far. Like the idea of moving an office from one part of the city to another part, even that much could be, frankly, asking quite a lot on the employees. If your commute at a job changes from 5 minutes to 50 minutes and you didn't care about that much about the job in the first place, that's going to be a contributing factor to your eventual departure. That being said, I've also personally experienced jobs that were literally 2 minutes from where I lived, and jobs that were like an hour commute from an hour or two and an hour back. And it seems like there's not as much of a difference once you realize that. It feels like there would be a lot of difference, and there probably is, but not as much as you would think. Going from a smaller building to a bigger building can have a certain effect on a company, certainly. This whole article is kind of just an advertisement thing. It's like, we got a bigger building, we have more space, that's great. It shows a level of commitment. I have worked certainly in offices that have not done anything to their building in 30 years, and it's just like, well, if you don't even care to put a new coat of paint on these yellowing walls, then you probably aren't going to take very much care of the employees. On the other hand, if you build $1 million new building and you haven't given your employees raises in the past 10 years, that can also have a demoralizing effect. But buildings in general don't matter. Like, as long as it's not horrible. It's not terrible.
Soul shall be mine. I will fight with honor.
A lot of the schools in the United States, for example, are 50, 60 years old buildings that are very minimally maintained, and most people don't care about it enough to complain until they find asbestos or black mold growing in the walls, and then they start to complain. But yeah, an odd story, not really news, quite frankly. Let's just keep moving on with the rest of the stuff. Next we have a game on Steam that is all in Asian characters. The entire description is in Asian characters. All I can say is it's tagged as an RPG. It looks like it's some form of an RPG. English is not available. It's $10.55 and it's a Chinese game. So, I mean, can't really comment on that, can you?
Never tell.
I think we'll probably run into several instances of games like that today. TechRaptor has an article here. Days Gone DLC will begin in June with free survival mode. Days Gone being a game that seems to be mediocre. It seems to be alright. If you've got nothing better to do with your time right now, Days Gone is fine. I would probably say that that the fact that Days Gone has opted to come out before Borderlands 3 is a very smart move on their part, because if Days Gone had come out after Borderlands 3, almost certainly nobody would ever play it. So they did some good publishing timing there. And I don't know if they really would have improved Days Gone anymore for you to have delayed it any further, or for them to have delayed it any further. That's a unless they were gonna rewrite the story and drastically change the gameplay and make basically a completely different game. I don't think that a little bit of changes would have changed the game much. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Anthem Update 1.10 now live. Numerous Act 1 calendar events have been delayed. The rumor is that Anthem is slowing down as far as new content being added and as far as just support in general. Anthem, pretty obviously, what has been a huge failure, and they're now just trying to slow play it in the same way that they slow played Mass Effect Andromeda. And yeah, they're just trying to get as much money as possible before you before they just put it in maintenance mode and abandon it in the same way that Mass Effect yeah. And the funny thing about Anthem in particular is that the underlying technology to it is almost certainly going to get used in something for future use.
For justice.
But in its current form, it's kind of absolutely nothing that you'd want to play.
My brood will survive.
But I guess that's only true what I just said, that it would be used in further game development if they get away from games as services like concepts. Otherwise, it may the underlying code for Anthem may be added to the development of the next games as service Anthem product, but that wouldn't really matter much. We have this game on Steam called Dr. Trolley's Problem. This is the philosophical, that's not a word, concept of where you have to pick whether the trolley will run over one group of people or another group of people, or just one person or the other person, over and over again. As a low effort asset flip Roblox looking clone game, it at least is going in a different direction here. Like, do you change the tracks and let it roll over one person, or do you leave the tracks alone and let it roll over another person? But as a game, $4.99, this is totally not worth it, because this is just a mental experiment you can have in your head, certainly, and it's just like the TV show The Good Place had a whole episode about this, and yeah, not worth giving money to a low effort developer just to physically recreate that. And quite frankly, there's probably a way you could recreate a game like the Trolley Problem in better looking games in general. I know you can tie up some people and leave them on the train tracks in Red Dead Redemption, but it would probably be a little too complicated to pull that off for a lot of different characters. I probably should follow OpenCritic more often, but here's OpenCritic's reviews for Days Gone. They're giving a top critic average, giving it a rating of fair, and 47% of critics recommend it. They say it has strong, exciting moments, but repetitive missions and bland world and narrative. Let's see. How does OpenCritic really work? As far as... See, I don't think OpenCritic is the aggregator that actually has fan reviews, and I think that's part of it. It is, I guess, interesting that GameStop started their Guaranteed to Love It program with Days Gone, so that you can return the game within 48 hours of it being purchased for store credit. You probably would want to take them up on that offer, but also the game is like 60 hours long, so you're not going to play all of Days Gone. I didn't really hear a lot of people hyped for Days Gone though, so I don't know how many people would have actually pre-ordered this game and been hyped about it and seen the reviews and changed their mind about it. But there definitely might be a few people like that out there, and so if you bought it at GameStop, I wouldn't begrudge you for returning it. In fact, it probably is a smart move for everybody that bought it at GameStop to return it for store credit, get some other game, or just sit on that store credit and then wait within 2 or 3 weeks, and you probably will see at least a minimal discount on used copies of the Days Gone. So you could probably get $60 of sales credit, and then buy the game back for $50 within a month, and get $10 for doing nothing other than walking in the store and putting up with a bunch of like shenanigans. TechRaptor has an article here: love of rare Nintendo 64 titles and nature inspires Tamarin. This looks well animated. So when is this game coming out? Because this is most definitely a hype hype article. Yeah, it's coming out to PS4 and PC this summer. And I'll watch this trailer and see what Tamarin looks like. Yeah, it looks like a 3D kind of platforming game. Odd that you have guns. That seems very odd. I would not have expected that part. So yeah, if this gets finished, Tamarin looks interesting. Right. This and then this. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Icy Survival City Builders. Frostpunk sells 1.4 million copies in its first year, which means, considering how it was a AA game, a kind of indie game that was just very polished, I think 1.4 million is a pretty good amount of sales for this. That being said, I don't think Frostpunk is particularly that good of a game, and I would heavily argue that it's not very relevant these days, and it would be a hard sell to get me or most people to buy Frostpunk and try and play it today. Unless you just like city strategy games that are slightly different, or you've played so many other city strategy games that would make sense. I played this.
Justice. Incoming. The battle.
I'm gonna lose here. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. It seems like this is some kind of puzzle research game or something. I don't know. It seems like it's just a bunch of random assets and subways. English is not supported. It's called Metro. It's $2.09. Yeah, some kind of horror in the subway asset flip game. It's Chinese only. Looks like a very cheap Chinese horror game. So I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why I'm seeing slightly more Chinese games is because one Chinese developer decided to push out a bunch of games on Steam. And I wouldn't also be surprised if Chinese developers are given the impression or believe that they have to be approved by the Chinese government before they can even sell the game on Steam, which I don't believe Steam is allowed in China at all. So but I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Next we have a game on Steam called One Drop Bot, which looks like a dropper game and platforming game. It doesn't look polished enough to interest me, frankly. It's $4.99. Yeah, something about the way I was when I was watching it did not catch my attention. That menu where it says quit and retry and all of this screen stuff and itch.io, that's what did it. Yeah, because I was looking at the game a second time and I'm like, why did I lose interest in this game so fast? And it's the lack of polish visually. Yep. I think we already talked about this, but Gamasutra has the article. Nepal lifts its short-lived ban on PlayerUnknown Battleground. this time it says the Supreme Court has lifted it. I thought it was a temporary stay while the Supreme Court was researching it.
I must move quickly.
So it may still be a decision for the Nepal Supreme Court to think about. But yeah. At the moment, if you live in Nepal, you can play PUBG. If you're an adult, you should play PUBG if you want to. That being said, I imagine anybody that had PUBG in Nepal, which I suspect the audience is not even that high. A lot of these bans in Middle Eastern theocratic dictatorship countries are bans on things that haven't even really been in the country. So yeah, it's a ban on something nobody was playing anyways. And a lot of times it's a ban on something that, like, if you are a rich person, you can find a way to VPN your way around it anyways. So a lot of the rich and powerful, or the rich and powerful children of people who are rich and powerful, still do whatever they want. And it's certainly not good for the strength of a country if just as it goes, people are consistently breaking the laws because the laws don't make any sense. That's when you start getting scenarios where there's huge amounts of corruption and you just have to bribe everybody to get anything done, which is ridiculous.
Reporting for duty.
We'd like to see less corruption in all governments. Gamma Citra has an article here. Persona 5 has sold over 2.7 million copies worldwide. This is probably a rather high number, considering it is a Japanese RPG. So 2.7, and it's been out since September 15th, 2016, so 3 years. The truth of it, though, and a different way to look at this announcement is they were limited to a time frame during the Persona concert to make this announcement. And they almost certainly wanted to announce that they had sold over 3 million. So they're like 10% short of what I heavily suspect was what they wanted to be able to say. But 2.7 million shouldn't be discounted too much. It is a very large amount of sales for a game that is very niche in comparison. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Angela's Odyssey, which seems like you play as a fox. And that doesn't look bad. I think this deserves a follow. It's a free game. I'm gonna put this on the follow list even though it is a free game. A surreal point-and-click adventure. That's what it says it is. Let me just make sure this developer... Well, the only other games he has is Defense Castle Chile. And what's this? And then Hold My Beer is a VR game. This publisher seems to be all over the place, frankly.
I wonder.
I don't know if this publisher is trying to be better and actually be a good developer, or if he is just kind of somehow stumbled into making something
The battle
slightly interesting.
coming for justice.
I'll still give it a follow. Well, you know what? It's a free game. Angela's Odyssey is there. It's free if you want to try it. Buyer beware, I suppose. GameIndustry.biz has a similar article. BioWare delays multiple Anthem features. Quote, this is a long way to go before Anthem becomes the game we all wanted it to be, says BioWare. I don't think there's anything more that needs to really be said about that. Yeah, Anthem is not succeeding the way they had hoped. Let's play some Shaman just to keep it interesting. And let's try to burn through as much of this as possible, because I feel like I may just end up wrapping up if I just start to feel like I'm getting tired, because yeah, I'm still feeling like I might be a little sick.
None can escape my fury.
We have a game here on Steam called Joe Jump Impossible Quest. This is a platforming game that doesn't look terrible, but it does just kind of look like a Super Meat Boy, like horribly difficult platformer. It's $2.69 discounted. I have no interest in that. Right, so I want to get rid of all the Shaman cards, but that's not gonna work, is it? May need to just make a Paladin deck and a Shaman deck in general. Next we have a game on Steam here called Lost King's Lullaby, which looks like it's a kind of Metroidvania-ish adventure game. Interesting. This has certainly caught my attention. Yeah, I kind of like the art style, and it's $13.49 discounted. It's English and Spanish. It seems like it is a fighting style similar to what was introduced in that game everybody loves, not Deltarune, but something Tail. Undertale. That's the name of it. Undertale. So yeah, Lost King's Lullaby. That should go on the follow list. Next we have a game on Steam called Havocado, which looks like yet another 3D Gang Beast clone. It looks exactly like Gang Beast. It's early access for 99 cents. And it's multiplayer only. I have no interest in it because it's multiplayer only. I also think probably nobody else really would be too interested in it either. Gamatsu has an article here. Nico Para Volume 3 is coming to the PS4 and Switch in Japan in June. I wouldn't be surprised if Nico Para is censored on the PlayStation. It was censored. One of the Nico Para games was censored, which is kind of odd. It's already on Steam, so let's look and see what the ratings and things say there. Let's see. Yeah, on Steam is tagged sexual content and nudity, although I think I could probably get away with showing, yeah, there's really nothing too offensive on the screenshots or anything here. Cat girls in maid outfits seems to be a big combination. This is $9.99. Is there a age rating here? Not so much. This is basically a visual novel, I'm fairly certain too.
I wonder.
So, yeah, almost certainly Nicopera will be the next in a growing list of games that are going to be censored on the PlayStation and not anywhere else.
I wonder.
Next, we have Dark Devotion. I believe I already saw a review about this and put this on the fall list. This is a Metroidvania style game, which is kind of hard to get an idea and see that because it's kind of a dark game, to say the least. But let's see this. Then end the turn.
Quickly.
So yeah, it's a hack and slash Metroidvania game. It definitely caught my eye. It's $19.99. I'll double check to make sure this is on the fall list. It's already rated mostly positive, so it should probably be on the wish list, in fact. Okay. Do this. And then do this. And then end the turn. GameIndustry.biz has the same article. Adult gaming portal Nutaku launches Android storefront. Restrictions on Google Play and App Store demanded new measures to improve accessibility for mobile users. I guess that is true. Like, it didn't really even occur to me, but yeah, that is probably 100% true that you really can't have an adult-oriented an adult-oriented storefront happen. Why do I have things that need to be dusted? I guess I forgot to come in here and dust them. Yeah, let's just make a paladin deck with all paladin cards. So whatever the cheapest paladin cards we can make. There you go. And while we're here, I guess we'll make a shaman deck with the cheapest shaman cards we can make. And that way I can get these daily quests done a little bit faster. Like, I see the end of the tunnel as far as tabs on my Chrome browser, and I wouldn't really be upset if I left some things, because I'm fairly certain that there's no bit of news that really matters too much. I should have played those as wild decks, actually. But whatever. Custom Paladin. Might as well play ranked. Let's see. GameIndustry.biz has an article here. Mario Kart Tour steps closer to launch with a closed beta test. Nintendo's upcoming mobile game was delayed from March 2019 launch date due to concerns over the quality. So hopefully they're going to improve the quality, because it doesn't really benefit anybody if Nintendo gets into cell phone games and they suck. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Joust, which does not look like it would be polished enough for a sword and shield fighting simulator. Frankly, even the game For Honor really did not succeed at making a realistic feeling sword and shield fighting game that people wanted to play. This is $4.49 discounted with a special in-user license agreement for no reason. This and then this and then another try. Let's see. Komatsu has an article here. Oninaki characters, trailers, and screenshots. I don't know what Oninaki is. It's apparently an RPG. When is it coming out? I didn't look to see if any of these were family friendly. Yeah, Oninaki is due out for the PS4, Switch, and PC this summer. I think this is the first I've even heard of it. So, yeah, we need more information. Gamatsu has an article here. Super Robot Wars T demo is now available in Japan and Asia. I'm not sure if it's even going to be if the game itself. Yeah, it's not even coming really to the West. It's just coming to Southeast Asia with the English subtitles for the PS4 and Switch. So they're not really confident in it to take it worldwide, which is fine because I don't think the Super Robot Warriors series is of really an interest. Komatsu also has an article here. Toho Sky Arena Matsuri Climax is available now for the PS4 and Switch worldwide, as well as the PS Vita in Japan. And they have a DLC character trailer for Yukari Yukomo. This seems like this is probably a beat 'em up game. If I was to guess. Guess I could watch the trailer, but there's kind of no point. Yeah, it's a flying around fighting beat 'em up game. A lot of games in Japan like to use the phrase climax, and whereas more in the Western world, at least in the United States, there's a kind of only one connotation from that word, and people forget the other ways it can be used. Often. Let's see. Next, there's a game on Steam here that's just a bunch of Asian characters. It looks like it is a top-down strategy, maybe tower defense game. Yeah, it kind of looks like a mobile game, tower defense. English not supported, $8.02 discounted. Another Chinese game. Not a terrible looking Chinese game. If this was like a mobile game, and it was in English, I would give it a thought, at least.
The battle!
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Super Neptunia RPG launches for PC on June 20th worldwide, and for the PS4 and Switch on June 25th in North America and June 28th in Europe. This is more of a mobile kind of RPG that's faster paced than a lot of the Neptunia games. The Neptunia, Super Neptunia RPG, though, will be censored on the PS4, which is ridiculous because the Neptunia series, and I didn't even realize this, it's always been rated T for teen. So it's not really terrible. It's a game that might show some underwear pantsuit in like 3 scenes, or might have a going to the spa bathing scene. It's small bits of cheesecake here. Not really talking like a hardcore or even softcore pornographic game series, and yet even the one bit of pantsuit is too much for PlayStation. So Sony just feels like it's all over the board. Like, Sony needs the PlayStation 5, from my perspective, to be successful, so that they can sell 8K Blu-rays, because that's their main product for people who want to play 8K Blu-rays. Now, Sony needs to sell 8K Blu-rays, not because Sony makes a bunch of movies, but because Sony of Japan makes a bunch of 8K TVs. And so if what it feels like is true, that Sony PlayStation is being abandoned or not cared about by Sony, then it's just the beginning of a domino chain in my mind of Sony getting out of the consumer electronics business in general and only making movies. And I don't think Sony can afford to just make movies. But also, it also doesn't seem like that's really what's happening, more than it's just chaos is happening within the walls of Sony. And that's how somehow Sony PlayStation is now being run out of California. That would also explain the idea of them having these Chinese game initiatives to put out Chinese developed games on the PlayStation.
The battle.
This is my responsibility.
The battle. Job's
I'm
done.
not sure. Gametsu has an article here. PM Studio announces a partnership with Numbskull Games to distribute physical releases in Europe, starting with Citus Alpha. Release dates to be announced very soon. Both PM Studios and Numbskull Games, not big names, not names I recognize. Citus is a music game that seems to be moderately popular on phones. A rhythm game. So perhaps in a few years there will be a whole series of music games under the Citus series that will still be enjoyed. Gametsu has an article here. A Hat in Time DLC, Yakuza Metro plus Online Party has been announced for PC, due out May 10th for $6.99. I definitely wanted to play A Hat in Time. I guess if more DLC is still coming out, then I guess I'm happy to maybe wait. That being said, this might be a case where there's just consistently going to be more and more DLC put out for A Hat in Time. You certainly could, I could believe that occurring, and that might just forever delay me getting around to playing it. And there's a lot of games that I haven't gotten around to playing. There's still tons and tons of games. I seriously doubt there would ever be a day when on a stream I said, oh, I'm just out of games to play, I've played them all. At that point I'd probably have forgotten so many of them I could go back and play them again. Gamasutra has an article here. Ubisoft is rewarding players for reporting reproducible bugs in Rainbow Six Siege. It's kind of surprising that Rainbow Six Siege is still getting talked about, but I guess they've figured out a way to stay in people's minds and on in the news stories, for better or for worse. I don't know how many people are still playing Rainbow Six Siege. Next we have a game on Steam here called Gunsmoke. Seems like it's probably not too related to the old TV show, black and white TV show called Gunsmoke. Although maybe it is, because it looks like it's a VR stand in one place shoot style games. Doesn't look terrible except for when there are these black bars. This requires VR and it's $3.99. That's too cheap for a VR game. The concept's not bad. It could use a lot more content than that. I think if you're gonna do a basically on-rails shooter in the cowboy times, you might as well have an actual on-rails level at the very least, where you are on a train and shooting at things. Next we have a game on Steam here called Soul Island, which might be a rhythm game. I'm having a hard time.
Versus Uther.
Hold and gun defense rush minigame on casual difficulty. I don't know what that means. That seems like it's not very descriptive. This is $1.99. I think 20 minutes to 35 minutes of playtime. English and Korean. Yeah, I think this game is probably just too small. It looks pretty good visually, but yeah, I have no idea really what it's saying. Hold and gun. I guess that's trying to imply that it's not a run and gun. Defense and rush minigame. It's a tower defense game, almost certainly. It just has some polish to it. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Sky of Destruction, which is just a fly around shooting game. It looks kind of polished. Early access, $11.69, English and Russian languages. I'm gonna be generous and put this one on the fall list because, you know, that if this came out of early access and that was actually good, I wouldn't hate the idea of playing a modern what am I trying to say here? A modern shoot 'em up game with some RPG elements, and that seems to be what it's offering.
Got something to hide?
TechRaptor has an article here. Video games infected with malware by tools infecting players. Let's see. Speaking of malware, I installed Spybot Search and Destroy, which I used to use consistently on the older version of Windows, and had it scan and see if it found anything and do its whole immunization things. And I have not been using that since Windows 10 came out, basically, so it's been 3 to 5 years, and it didn't really find anything. So, yeah, I don't think with Windows 10 you really need to do anything else. I think you're perfectly fine to just live with its built-in antivirus, anti-spyware stuff. An ad blocker certainly will help you. This story seems to be that this The program in question, Microsoft Visual Studio. Microsoft Visual Studios is a popular program when developing video games. Arguably, I would say Visual Studio shouldn't be used because you should be using like the Unity or Unreal more than likely. But yeah, if you're just programming outside of those engines, Microsoft Visual Studio makes a lot of sense.
There is little time.
Let's see. The article says rather than targeting a lone device or network, hackers are targeting computer distributing codes to the victims. Hackers corrupt the tools used by 3 different game developers. The programs in question, Microsoft Visual Studio, it's popular. The thing here is this is also an article from Kaspersky and ESET. And so Kaspersky sells antivirus software, so they have to continuously say that there's a threat and need to use that antivirus software. So yeah, you might want to read this article, you might not. I don't think there's really a threat too much. And almost in direct opposite to that story, GameIndustry.biz has this article, Microsoft's market cap now reaches $1 trillion. Company value edges over the milestone this morning for the first time, making it most valuable US publicly traded company, which that was Apple at some point. So I guess Apple stocks, yeah. Well, maybe Apple never got up to $1 trillion. Like, maybe it was just there was talk of Apple was going to be the first $1 trillion company. Of course, that's Microsoft in general, not just Xbox or the video game division. It's also all the licenses and copies of Steam. Not Steam, but Windows. And all of its server-side Azure offerings.
Reporting for duty.
Of course, also the valuation of their stock is, for the most part, a just randomized, random market speculation. Moving on, we have a low-effort Russian game, if I have ever seen one. There's nothing here. It's all written in Russian. It's 99 cents. It only supports the language of Russian. Yeah, nothing there of interest. TechRaptor has the same article. Mario Kart Tour now accepting beta is now accepting applicants. So if you're interested in that.
Job's done.
Next, TechRaptor has a review for this bizarre game that I saw a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Yuppie Psycho review, Pasternak's Bizarre Adventure. So this is a crazy game. Let's see what they thought about it with 8-bit graphics. They gave it an 8.5 great. Yuppie Psycho is one of the few survival horror games to keep me on the edge of my seat, though occasionally bizarre and totally strange. It has all the markings of a great adventure. The puzzles are engaging, the story is gripping, and the horror kept me coming back for more. Pros: great story, logic-based puzzles, strong character writing, well-developed survival horror, tension building, save system, and panic-inducing gameplay. Cons: tonal strangeness, repetitive bosses, and migraine-inducing visuals. So I need 17 more, 15 more shaman cards. Let's keep playing. So yeah, Yuppie Psycho looks like it's one to put on the wish list. Yuppie Psycho is out now on Steam. We can see it's rated positive. It's weird, certainly, but I like weird. That being said, looking at the price, 10% off for $14.99 is asking quite a lot. So I'll put this probably on the wish list, but yeah, there's a lot of games on the wish list that never get cheap enough for it to make sense to actually buy them. Next we have a game on Steam called Prose Enlightenment. This looks like a low effort asset flip walking simulator game. Let's see, requires virtual reality, requires controller, $17.99. English and Chinese and German and Russian are the main languages listed. Yep. Yeah. Because this game, Prose Enlightenment, is a VR game, and I'm just not sold on it enough, I'm just gonna close the tab, but it is close. Definitely close. TechRaptor has a kind of hype article here. At this point, it is more hype than of real interest to me. Persona 5, the royal enhancements detailed during the Persona concert. Not to be confused with Persona 5 Scramble. Not to be confused with Persona 5 original game. They've got like 3 different spin-offs or 3 different games by the title Persona 5 when it frankly should just have different names. So yeah, if you're interested in Persona 5, that article is there for you, I guess.
Who you calling ugly?
I could play this, could play this, could do this. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Phase Shift, which looks like it is just a direct ripoff of Rock Guitar Hero. Let's see, yeah. I don't see anything here that isn't just a 100% copyright infringing ripoff of Guitar Hero for early access, $12.74 discounted. Probably doesn't have a lot of music in it, unless it stole a bunch of music. It's compatible with most PC compatible instruments. It uses MIDI support, which is an interesting concept, but I think you have to change the way the note road, which is what I think this is called, looks and plays a little bit. I don't think you can just steal that. I think that's copyrighted. And even if it isn't, and this is all on the up and up and I'm just wrong, there's still a level of problem here, and the fact that the game just doesn't look like it's doing anything new. Let's see. TechRaptor has an advertisement for the Fanatical Exile bundles, packs, and 10 great games, Star Wars, and many more. If you want to look at Fanatical, I don't buy games fanatical because it's not giving to a charity like Humble Bundle, so I'm not interested in that. Let's see, do this. Do this. And in return, Gamatsu has an article here. SNK 40th Anniversary Collection is coming to Xbox One on May 13th. Or May 3rd, if I can read correctly. Let's see. Is there anything else to really say from this article, though? Not really. I would have wanted to see a list of all the games in the SNK collection. I guess it is here, if you wanted to pause the screen and read all of this. Doesn't look like a lot of them are too interesting, but it is interesting that it's bothering to come to the Xbox at all. Gamatsu has an article here. Toho Project Mahjong game is called Toho Jinso Mahjong and has been announced for the Switch, due out in the fall for Japan. Being a Mahjong game, it would be not allowed in China. And this is 4-player Mahjong, the real Mahjong, not Mahjong Solitaire that is often sold and played in the West. And it looks about as good as any other Mahjong game. Like, there's really not a lot to do for a Mahjong game, and people know it, and that's why they make them. It's because there's no real quality content you can make from it.
That's not a valid target.
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Hideo Kojima discusses Death Stranding at the Tribeca Film Festival 2019. You might see more of Death Stranding in a month or so, he said. Yeah, there's no reason to take in any more information about Death Stranding. I'll be excited about it when it actually comes out, if it ever actually comes out, and kind of not a second before.
Who you calling ugly?
Let's see. GameIndustry.biz has an article here. UK government awards £12 million funding for innovation projects based on homegrown IP. Augmented and virtual reality games in development for Oscar-winning Wallace and Gromit and BAFTA winning Peaky Blinders. So basically, British-made content are getting funding to make British-made games. I don't really know if Peaky Blinders or Wallace and Gromit, though, is going to make an amazingly interesting game. Wallace and Gromit's a fine, small. It's like a fine animated movie series and TV series. Maybe it's a TV series. I think it's just movies. But I don't know if adding interactivity to it would improve it. Gamatsu has an article here. PS4 shipments worldwide top 96.8 million, which tells you part of the market share. Let's just assume that the Xbox One shipments have only done 90 million. That's 180 million plus, I think there's only been maybe 10 or 20 million, let's say 20 million Switch sales. So for the console market, there's 200 million potential customers to sell to. If you're selling 3 million, then you're getting 1% of the customer base. That's probably pretty accurate. Or at least a moderately accurate guess as far as what a good game could potentially sell at. Meanwhile, with PlayStation Plus subscribers have topped 36.4 million, so only a third of people with PlayStation 4s are currently subscribed to PlayStation, and in total, in the fourth quarter, 54.7 million units of software was sold, which tells me that nearly half of the people who owned a PlayStation 4 did not buy, well, probably more than half did not buy any games at all in the fourth quarter for the PlayStation 4, because you have to also calculate the people who would have bought 2 or 3 games for the PlayStation 4. And that's kind of an incredibly high number to say in the last 4 months of 2018, which would include, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas, that whole holiday season. To say nearly half of the people who own PlayStation 4s had either never had any intention of buying games or just chose not to buy any games, that is not great news. In similar information, TechRaptor has an article. Nintendo reports almost 10 million Switch Online accounts. Smash Ultimate now outsells the Wii U, which is to say one game has sold more than the entire console of the Wii U. I recently was reminded or learned that Super Mario Maker 1 came out on the Wii U, and I'm like, oh, I would have sworn that was a Switch launch product, but it wasn't. And Mario Maker 2 is now coming out for what little hype it's getting. Alright, we already talked about this. However, even though they have good sales, Nintendo's shares dropped 5% after a conservative Switch forecast. Platform's holder share price still has risen 29% since the start of the year. So it was a bit overinflated at 34% increase, and people started selling off after Nintendo gave some conservative sales numbers, which Nintendo is pretty conservative on their estimations of sales, but that's probably the right way to run a business. TechRaptor has an article here, Follow Your Animal Instincts and Black Sad Under the Skin, launching September 26th. This is basically a hype article until it's out and there's an actual review. We are done, by the way, on the European account. Well, no, the Asian account. Right? We're on the Asian account. Yeah, Asian account. Look at all those Asian names. So we're done for the day. And I only have a small number of news articles, and then we're just going to wrap up. GameIndustry.biz, rising PS4 game sales drive Sony to $78.1 billion in full year revenues. The gaming segment's operating income to take a $278.3 million hit as investment increases in the PlayStation 5. So they're planning on spending $300 million to develop the PlayStation 5 some more. But yeah, the Sony is still making a lot of sales. Certainly, still making money. TechRaptor has an article here. Dragonstar Varnier flies into the west this summer. This, I think, is probably a bullet hell shoot 'em up game. Let's see if we can. Idea Factory. Yeah, this looks like a RPG. It's not a bullet hell shooter game, it's an RPG game. Looks like it might be turn-based too. Yep. Looks slightly interesting. So when it comes out, I'll get more information about it. Gamatsu has an article here. Dead or Alive 6 shipments, top 350,000 sales, or shipments, I guess is different than sales, but for a big AAA fighting game, this is probably not a lot of sales for how long it's been out. That being said, DOA 6 is full of DLC and rip-off things, and there was a lot of controversy around it for that, for too much DLC, too expensive DLC, and them slightly toning down the original outfits, but not going anywhere as bad as Mortal Kombat has gone. And frankly, you can undo everything that they did. They kind of just changed the default costumes, which frankly, if Mortal Kombat had done that and then still had a lot of the bikini costumes, people wouldn't have complained so much. But it does prove, this is one of those rare instances where the slippery slope argument has been proven. DOA ships with less bikinis, a game known for having bikini fighting girls, and just a couple months later, Mortal Kombat ships and all of the females are like basically burqa'd, like fully covered. So next fighting game we get, will there be no female characters at all? Will all the female characters look like men because they're just not going to be feminine or attractive at all? Who knows? It might continue to slip down that slope, and that's why people who are interested in seeing attractive females in fighting games need to be vigilant, otherwise it's going to disappear. Moving on, we have Gamatsu here. Yeah, Gamatsu. Sony says the PlayStation 5 is not due out before April of 2020, so early 2020 speculation is off the table. This locks down a date where the Xbox One 2 or the Xbox 2 could come out slightly earlier and gain a strong following, or maybe Microsoft just takes it a bit slower and releases the Xbox 2 after the PlayStation 5 comes out. Those are calculations they're going to have to make. GameIndustry.biz has an article here. Starbreeze is selling the publishing rights for 10 crowns back to the developer. It marks the third such a deal in just over a year, but it still holds on to Psychonauts. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is Starbreeze, I believe, is running out of money and basically on the verge of going bankrupt, while they're still also trying to be the publisher of Psychonauts 2, which they're hoping is a huge success and sells very well. And I'm not sure. We may see very much a case where, because Starbreeze is going to be the publisher for Psychonauts 2, they may just not invest enough money to advertise and sell Psychonauts 2 as much as it should be sold. So I wouldn't be surprised if the game undersells due to just a lack of advertising. But it could also undersell for just a lot of competition out there. Finally, we have Hardcore Mecha for PS4 launches this summer in Japan. Another game. We'll just leave it at that. It's just a mecha game. And then that puts me at the Humble Bundle. And there are some bundles, but I've overspent my budget, I think. So if anybody wants to buy any of the Humble Bundles or any Steam keys from anywhere and give them to me through Twitter direct message, that'd be very much appreciated. But I don't think I'll be planning on spending any money this month. And then that takes me back to Twitter, and let's see if there's anything to say here. I'm just scrolling down here on my Twitter news to see if there's any new announcement. The Cat Lady and Downfall sequel, Lorelei, is very close to being published and released on PC. It may be out even right now. I will get around eventually to playing that, but that's kind of it to say there. I like the Cat Lady very much. But I didn't really like Downfall as much, so I wouldn't be surprised if I find Lorelei okay, but not great. And yeah, I've just scrolled down through all the Twitter feeds back to stuff I've already seen, which tells me there's no new news. Not really surprising for a Friday. So, thanks to Level by Level Gaming for swinging by. That's going to be it for this recording and the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. If you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.